Hi, this is Dave Jackson here. Now, we're broadcasting from a system that we call NBBC, that's Newcastle Beaches Broadcasting Company, but we're doing a series of programs which I would like to call Financial Freedom FM. In this case, FM doesn't stand for frequency modulated, it stands for family media. Now, we'll make some programs here and some podcasts, and we hope you have a listen, and we hope you find some of this stuff interesting. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can always call or text our studio number, which is +61 for Australia, 0468 404 844. That's +61 for Australia, 0468 404 844, or simply send us an email, studio@nbbc@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Well, a very good morning or a good afternoon wherever you are around the world. This is David Jackson here, coming to you from our little studios in Newcastle. That's not Newcastle in the UK. This is Newcastle in New South Wales, Australia. To be precise, we are based in Charlestown. Now, we have recently been inundated with some requests from various people, including myself and mainly a lot of friends of ours, to do something about the amount of scams that are going on online, unfortunately, to the detriment of a lot of Australian citizens, and it is driving us bonkers. I've never seen so much crap come out of the woodwork in the last, 20 or 30 years, but I've got to go back for the very, very first story. I've got to go back in time to about 25 to possibly 30 years ago when I came across the very first scam that I thought was exceedingly clever, very well thought out, but my goodness me, how people actually think of this stuff, I will never know. Let me explain exactly what happened. Okay, let's have a quick look at the very first scam that I saw. I'm sorry about this report. There's going to be a little bit of I, me, because this was obviously something that I'd experienced many years ago. So let me tell you a story. Back in about 1997, I purchased an old public house in East London. It was a wreck of a building. It was worth quite a bit of money because it was close to London. However, I offered the people that were selling it a much reduced price, and they said yes, because they were trying to get rid of all the assets from a company that had gone broke. So that was the story there. Now, I proceeded to renovate this lovely old public house and turned it into a nice little bar, which we owned for about 3 or 4 years. Now, because I was in East London, I had to become part of what's known as Neighbourhood Watch. So I went to the local police station and I met what was known then as the licensing sergeant. He was a very nice man. We got on very well together, and we were just chatting about things that go on in the area, what people to watch out for, some rat bags that obviously live locally that may have come in to our venue that we needed to be aware of. However, we went on to discuss what sort of scams he had been involved with the police in his station. And this one just fascinated me. He said they were out on patrol one night. There was an old office building which was empty, but still had the power connected for some reason. There'd been some sort of disturbance there, so they went to check it out. I think they had to break into a door. They got into an office that was completely empty, but all around the room were telephones, that's mobile telephones, sitting on the holsters in their chargers, but they were on. So they thought, what's this all about? There would have been 20 or 30 phones there. They picked the phone up and they listened, and each phone was ringing one of these sex lines that was based in somewhere like Singapore or Thailand or somewhere. So they were listening to this and they're thinking, what the heck is all this about? The people that had set this up very cleverly actually owned all these sex lines in Thailand. I can't remember exactly the location. Singapore, one of those Asian countries. So they'd set these lines up. So when you rang that number, it was like a premium rate number. So the phone that was sitting on that line was being charged, I don't know, £1, £2, $3, whatever it might be, per minute. Now, these phones, this was before telephones became digital, and before digital phones, whether you're aware of this or not, they were called analog, which meant they used an analog signal. So what happens is, let's say your name is Mr. Smith, Now, you've got to fly off on a business trip to New York for a day or for 2 days, whatever it may be. You go out to, let's say in this particular case, Heathrow Airport in West London, and you're making final phone calls to your office, to your secretary, to business associates before you get on your plane, on your flight. Now, around the outside of the airport are people sitting with what's known as mobile phone scanners. Now, because of my personal background, my background is electronics and electrical stuff, so I know quite a bit about this. There is a thing called an ESN, and that is an electronic signal number. So whenever you had an analog phone, it had a number which then is allocated to a certain frequency. Now, these guys sitting outside the airport had scanners. They could scan all these frequencies, and when somebody was on their phone, they can steal your ESN, your electronic signal number, because it comes up on a screen. They then get another phone, which they've bought very, very cheaply, which in those days they were quite cheap, and then they will put a SIM card in that, and they will clone your phone. You must have heard years ago about phone cloning. So now Mr. Smith has got on his plane and he's merrily flying across to New York, unless he's got access. In those days, we didn't have any internet on planes. It was too early. This was back in the sort of mid to late 80s. So he's happily flying off to New York to his business meeting or whatever he's doing over there. In the meantime, these guys have cloned his phone number, taken it to this office, rung up one of their sex lines, which is now charging his number so many pounds or so many dollars per minute, and they just leave it on the holster and it runs for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, who knows. So they're making the revenue from the sex line because somebody's calling it. Now, don't forget they were doing this over and over again. It was about, 20, 30, 40 phones in this room. And what happens is when Mr. Smith finally gets his phone bill when he comes back from New York, he finds that his phone bill is £1,000, £2,000, £3,000, £4,000. Don't forget, double it for Australian dollars. So that's what he was left with a bill. Now, he will contest that, obviously, but they've got the money. They've got the money and then they've run away. Some people don't contest it because of their embarrassment. They can't say, to their wife, look, darling, I've got this massive bill because I've been calling a sex line in Thailand. Well, the fact of the matter is they haven't, but of course they've been scammed by these people. And I thought, what an incredibly clever scam that was. And that was back in the late 80s, which is a hell of a long time ago. So as you can see, scammers have become more and more sophisticated as the internet has become more and more usable and more sophisticated itself. It's incredible. Well, that was the first one that I ever heard of, and I thought I would put that on the first podcast that we make. I hope you're going to find these stories interesting, because the next one will be about some things that friends of mine have experienced, and in fact so have we. We've been scammed a couple of times, and I thought I had done my incredible due diligence. But unfortunately for me, it wasn't good enough, and I was going to buy some shares with a company in Singapore, but that one will come up on the next podcast. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you're going to find these fascinating. I will post these onto social media, and we'll see if we get any reaction. I would love to hear from you. If you've got a scam that you would like to share with the rest of the population, especially locally here in Newcastle, we're in Newcastle, New South Wales, then please let us know. There's a phone number here I can give you. It's 0468 404 844. You can either text me on that or call me on that. It is our office line or our studio line, so as long as somebody's here, you will get an answer. Or you can just literally email me, and the email address is studionbbc@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you on the next podcast, which will be in the next day or so, and we'll try and expose some more of these ridiculous scams that people are being unfortunately caught with. Just as a quick end to this story, I just read an article just now. The annual income from scams in the UK is £2.3 billion. That's billion with a B, not million with an M. £2.3 billion. That's $4.6 billion. It's a phenomenal industry. And I'm just hoping by these podcasts we might alleviate somebody getting scammed by some idiot online. Thanks for listening. This is Dave Jackson. We'll see you again very soon. Bye now.